Dear beautiful people, it has been a while since the last time I made a video. Please understand, these are quite the challenging times and there are a lot of things that need my attention, so I don't always get around to make videos. But I intend to share more and more with you in the years to come. Now, today I want to speak about something that is very important with regards to understanding the Ascension process. Now, previously I have been spoken about the fact that Ascension happens in cycles, that we have cycles of soul evolution on the planet. And at the end of a cycle, there's a soul harvest in which you either graduate this reality or you don't. You graduate from this reality. And then depending on your energetic state at the point of the soul harvest, you enter a timeline that is representative of your energy. If your energy is not high enough to ascend to a higher plane, there's a repeat on a lower plane that you then need to experience. Now, why do I call this video Augmentation versus Ascension? Because the Ascension process is a natural process and it goes hand in hand with laws of nature, ultimately divine laws on a deeper level of existence. Evolution itself is of a spiritual nature. This has been grossly misunderstood by the modern society that uses science as a replacement for spiritual experience. Therefore, the word of scientism is being thrown around lately quite a lot, and it's a very appropriate word for what is going on. Now, those who believe in scientism believe in ascension through technology, through augmentation. Now, what does that mean exactly? Now, augmentation in some ways can be useful. As a simple example, if you want to know what is in your bloodstream and you can observe that with a microscope, but your actual eyes are incapable of zooming in so deeply that you could see what's in your bloodstream, so you can't analyze your blood by using your eyes. Obviously then the use of a microscope makes sense, but in a way it's an augmentation because you're putting a machine between an object of observation and your senses. So you're trying to enhance your senses by building a technology between your senses and the object of observation. Now this is a way of upgrading of what you can perceive of the universe. Yeah? If you don't have a microscope, you don't know what happens on a microbiological level. While this is in service here, at some point, when we try to integrate technology into the human body, it becomes a tremendous disservice to the human. Because ascension, that means the upgrading of our senses and the upgrading of our nervous system, happens naturally without augmentation. And the dark forces on the planet, the elites, what they are trying to do, they try to give you a surrogate for ascension. They want to replace ascension with a dimension that they control. So for example, when Zuckerberg announced his plans for the metaverse, it's an attempt of creating a dimension where they rule. And they try to offer you that dimension as a way of transcending the physical, but it's an unnatural way. Because you're not transcending the physical through your spiritual evolution, but you're transcending the physical, or believe you're transcending it, by just shifting attention to a digital construct. Now, to understand how veiling works, I give you this very simple example. If you put on sunglasses, you can still see the sun, but it doesn't hurt your eyes anymore. Yeah. If you put another sunglass over those sunglasses and another one and another one and another one, at some point you would not be aware that there's a sun. because the light would be so distorted and so blocked that it wouldn't reach your retina. Yeah, it wouldn't reach your sensory system, or it would be so dim that you wouldn't be aware of it actually reaching your sensory system. So in order to veil your own light that comes from within you, if we distract you on the external plane, yeah, through adding those layers, those dimensions, but these dimensions are artificially created, you become more and more lost in a sense of amnesia. Because in order to remember who we are, we need to meditate. That means we need to turn inward. We need to investigate the inner dimensions. But if I offer you an outer dimension or a digital dimension, then I create dimensions within dimensions within dimensions. The probability that you remember that you are a soul is very small because you're too distracted. You're now distracted with a reality within a reality within a reality within a reality. So this is what dark forces do. They create more and more veils. But they themselves, because they do not turn inward, because they're incapable of doing the shadow work, they don't want to face the karmic responsibility for what they have done over centuries or even thousands of years. They don't want to face that, so they want to cheat the Ascension system. But you can't trick that system. It is impossible. So, because they cannot ascend in a natural way, what they're trying to is to get into a godlike status with technology. So this is where they're interested in cybernetics. This is where they're interested in interfacing neurology with computer chips and so on. In a way that this has already been done. Yeah, I'm only saying the V. You all know what I mean. This is the way into transhumanism, where we bioengineer the whole of society, yeah, interface them with nanotechnology and so on, in a way to create a hive mind and to literally plug them into the matrix, which is then your Facebook metaverse. So basically, again, yeah, glasses on glasses on glasses, so distorting the light further and further and further, so you stop remembering who you are. But of course, now the energy on the planet is increasing, so if you're not augmented by technology, you naturally will evolve, you naturally will ascend. As long as you go into nature, into stillness, into meditation, your energy will increase, your DNA blueprint will change. Just by allowing, being still, being in nature, meditating, doing the shadow work. This means then that you can integrate more and more of your energy bodies and again receive more evolved DNA. But those processes are natural and they can't be forced, and we can't cheat ourselves into them by avoiding our karmic responsibility. That is not possible. So those who did not evolve, and I'm going to be very clear here, these beings who are obsessed with technology and augmentation, they started that in Atlantis. So they have not evolved for thousands of years, but now they want to keep everybody else trapped by trapping others with them in this technocratic scientism worship dimension. And it's literally the opposite of going into enlightenment. So, when you come to the understanding that the ascension process, you cannot cheat your way up, so to speak, but only through the taking responsibility of your inner workings, of the karmic energies that you have been collecting over hundreds of years. Only then the ascension process can work, yeah, because spirit knows and sees everything. When at some point some of you will start consciously interacting with ascended masters, you will realize they read your mind. They know your past lives. They know everything about you. So someone who knows everything about you cannot be tricked. And the very attempt at tricking only shows immaturity. So In order to get on the Ascension train naturally, you need to, yeah, if you want to be on the Ascension train, of course, because you have free will, yeah, that's very important. You can choose darkness. You can choose to descend, of course you can, because you're loved. That's why you're allowed to explore yourself in different ways, and even by distancing yourself more and more from who you are. Yes, you're allowed to do that. But of course, that means at some point there needs to be a sort of redemption arc of ascending again and having to work through all the karmic debt that was collected through descending. Because when we descend, we are unconscious. That means we will have unconscious action that is in disharmony with the rest of creation. And that means we need to restore what imbalances we have created. That's the way it goes. So in this ascension process, if you cannot cheat it, that's already a very helpful understanding. Because if you cannot cheat it, you might as well allow it or surrender to it or accept the way the process naturally is. Now, those who don't want to accept it, they want to disconnect from the source consciousness as much as possible. So create their own universes, be the rulers of it, and so on and so on. This is very fear-driven, because understand that all what these elites do is, on the deepest level, is the fear of death and the fear of God. Why the fear of God? Because when you enter the light, you become aware of what you have done, what impact you have had on others, how you made them suffer with your actions, and since they want to avoid this, they want to fall even deeper. But to them, falling deeper in a twisted way is what they believe what ascension is, to fall deeper, so go further away from the divine and create your own dimension, you see. Well, unfortunately, they have tricked many beings into following them. This is how it goes, but they weren't as successful as they wanted to be. There are many beings now who are ascending, who are awakening, and if you're listening to me, probably something in you is also on the move into a higher energetic space. So, the obsession with genetic engineering and the obsession with cybernetics and the digital dimensions. Now, please understand that technology itself is neutral. We can use technology in a benevolent way, or we can use technology in a malevolent, in a manipulative way. The future of humanity will be highly technological, but also highly spiritual. If you have one without the other, there are no ethics. And there are no limits to what people do with technology. So in order to break divine law, they disconnect from their intuition, they disconnect from their heart. But if we are heart-centered, if we are heart-connected, we know divine law intuitively. Nobody needs to read us a constitution and educate us about law if we are heart-centered, because then we get it directly from the source. Now, if we get it directly from the source, if we then use technology, we will use technology in a conscious way, not in an unconscious way. So right now, the issue is that technology definitely has greatly, let's say, the services that technology offers us has made our life easier in some ways. The reason that you can right now receive this video from me and receive the knowledge that I'm transmitting you in your home or on a phone when you're sitting somewhere, that's already a great benefit to you. You don't have to go to a temple anymore and sit with some guru for like 10 years, because right now the accessibility with regards to teaching is great. So these are one of the benefits of technology, but this is using technology in a benevolent way. Now, the ones who have the monopoly on technology right now, the big tech industry, what they have basically done, they have used something that started with a benevolent idea, or benevolent idea that they wanted you to believe in. Oh, you can be your own creator by using social media, by using YouTube, by using Instagram, by using Facebook. And many people saw the benefit and they jumped on it and they were like, yeah, great. Now I can reach a lot of people. Now my business that was before was regionally trapped can now work internationally. Now, if I have wisdom about anything, about yoga, about music, about art, whatever, I can share it with the universe. All of that is wonderful. To connect people, to connect with people from different nationalities, cultural background, ethnic background, and so on. All of this is wonderful. This is the idea of oneness that is hijacked in a way, though, by the elite, because once they had the monopoly, they started introducing tyrannical rules to censor and to then put their own content in there to mass brainwash human society. And you see how augmentation is promoted. It's very bizarre when you look at Zuckerberg's Facebook video, where he is promoting the metaverse, and he says, well, you put those VR goggles on and you can retreat into a beautiful forest in the VR headset. Hey, I can retreat into an actual forest with actual trees, actual air to breathe, and actual green leaves. So you see what they're trying to do, everything that has a divine origin, they try to replace it with something artificial. So you disconnect more and more from your natural state of being. This is why Bill Gates is buying all the farmland in the US so he can produce genetically modified food. So you eat corrupt food, so you enter an artificial forest, then you're being bioengineered through the V, right? Depopulated a certain part of you, and another part of you is being reprogrammed to tune into a matrix via nanobots and certain technology that suppress your ascension process, disconnects you from your heart center, and so on. So you see, there's a lot of effort being put in to disconnect you from everything that comes from spirit, from everything that comes from source. Move you from a high energy environment into a low energy environment, so your chance of remembering of who you are becomes more and more and more limited. So if someone like Elon Musk is saying, well, we got to put a chip into your head, and then it's being advertised, oh, we can heal certain illnesses with it, Parkinson's or certain neurological deficiencies. Again, it's being sold to you that the technology is answer to everything, that healing cannot occur without technology, and that you're dependent on technology. So often those beings who work towards disconnecting from source will pretend that they have intentions for you that would be the intentions of source. So basically, the Antichrist is always gonna pretend that he is the Christ. Remember, certain people said 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we care about your safety and all of this, and then you find yourself in a 2-year prison sentence. So you're being teased with the idea that something loving is going to happen, but it's actually just a Trojan horse where they try to get you to consent, so then they can use their malevolent technology and the brainwashing to keep you trapped into a lower dimensional state of low energy frequency, where your divine connection and your remembrance, for example, of past lives, of who you truly are and where you come from, that all of that is even that much harder for you to access. So let's be very clear about this. When Atlantis fell, there were those who believed in technology as the answer. And they were very jealous at those who were ascending naturally. Back then, in Atlantis, the foundation was laid for the great yogis later that you, for example, know from India, who back then would lay the groundwork for the yoga of knowing yourself, knowing thyself, turning inward to know yourself as the creator. But to turn inward, you have to face your darkness as well. And those who didn't want to do this, those who were too afraid, too cowardly to do this, they tried to use technology to dominate and create a false sense of ascension. And they're doing it again. So they believe in augmentation as a replacement for the divine. Feel into yourself if that makes sense. Feel into yourself where you want to go. Now, speaking about this, some of you might have the question, what is the purpose of evil in creation? What is the point of darkness or negativity? Well, negativity is a container. What do I mean by that? For example, in terms of physics, if you have a molecule and in the center of the molecule you have protons and neutrons, then you have the electrons that surround the molecule and create an energetic field that keep the protons and the neutrons in the core. So the negatively charged particles, the electrons, help the structure to stay intact. So in that sense, negativity in the universe is a force that keeps structures intact. What is that in human terms? Well, that's the ego structure. The ego structure keeps a sense of identity intact. So every time you try to expand, you might feel negativity arising within you. You might experience negative thoughts. You might experience thoughts that offer you limitations. So these are the dark forces that tell you stay limited, stay small, stay a slave, right? So negativity in that sense is the container. It offers you limitation. In some way it makes sense because in order to have a human experience, you need to limit yourself to a form in order to have the subjective experience. So in that sense, the negativity serves to some degree until you are supposed to evolve past that form, past that container, because it contains you. And if you don't want to be contained anymore, you basically got to change your energy makeup to break out of this container. So darkness, negativity has another role to play in the universe, and that is to offer you choice. Free will ultimately is a distortion of source consciousness, because on the deepest level, if you know you are source, that means the will of source is your will. If you would be fully conscious of that fact, you wouldn't act against yourself, but then you wouldn't have free will because your will would become the will of source. So basically negativity offers you something other than source, offers you ego, offers you self-centeredness, offers you certain experience. So you have a force that is containing you, that is pulling you down, that tries to keep you low in frequency. That's the negativity. And then you have the light that wants to assist you in expanding, in overcoming this container and returning to source consciousness. This dynamic exists in the universe. Ultimately, the source consciousness can't be pushed out forever, but the dark energy can play a delaying action. It can delay the enlightenment process as much as possible. Well, at least when you identify with the darkness, then you are the delayer. You are doing the delaying action by identifying with dark energy. So, but through the denial of source, what happens is you make more experience in incarnation, and therefore you're individualizing. And yet when you want to return to source, that doesn't mean your individualization is deleted. Quite the opposite, it will be cherished. But yet you need to do the shadow work to clear out your karmic debt so you can increase in energy to such a degree that you can break the container. So ascension without spiritual practice is impossible. Enlightenment without spiritual practice is impossible. Those who tell you otherwise, those who tell you that the answers to your troubles are mostly solved by external approaches and by scientific approaches and so on, they are misleading you. Now, those of us who focus on survival either way couldn't make it through the current soul harvest, because those who focused on survival, they were coerced or bullied or pressured into taking the V. And when you talk to them, they will find all sorts of rationalizations why they took the V. They will say that they did it because of family, they had to make income, they had to survive. They had to survive will come up a lot. But this is a test. What do you value more? Your ego, your subjective form container, or your soul? Because someone who values their soul more will rather die than get corrupted. So you see, this is a very tough test for people. What are they choosing? Are they choosing ascension through natural processes, through cosmic processes, through cyclical processes where energies and DNA information reaches us through light radiation from the cosmic source and therefore upgrades us? Or are we so afraid over for our physical survival that we get triggered into corrupting ourselves, into injecting ourselves with certain things that block our ascension? This was a very key test. So, what is negativity for then? I gave you a little bit of a hint. It offers you experience. But in a way, it's also, it's basically practicing with weights. So sometimes I bring the Gandhi example. Sometimes I speak about that without the British Empire, Gandhi wouldn't have happened. So if you see that the British Empire in India at the time was the oppressor, was the negative force, was the container, when Gandhi emerged, this type of container that would put him under pressure, this type of dark energy strengthened his resolve, made him strong internally. So when you are faced with darkness, it's ultimately never negative. You can have a negative response to it by making yourself a victim to it, but a negative response and a positive response, both is possible. A positive response would be to act as a soul, to use the pressure to remove everything from yourself that is illusion and being even stronger in your resolve. So you could then use it as a catalyst to become more of a being of light. Or you can use it as a catalyst to become more of a being of darkness. The situation ultimately is therefore neutral. It is about how you use the catalyst. So therefore, negativity can serve us in such a way that it makes us, for example, conscious of where we are not strong yet within ourselves, or where we believe that we are not strong yet. Yeah, because if we feel an impulse to act from corruption, that means we act from fear. So then we can use this dark impulse to become aware of ourselves. It's kind of like if a professional hacker would hack the security system of a company and then write them, hey, I hacked your system has a gap here. In a way, when dark entities approach you and try to tempt you or manipulate you in some way, then you know they're doing this because you have a gap in your energy field, in your aura. So the interaction with dark energy does not have to be negative. It has to do with how are you approaching this. If dark energy is present in your life, it has a reason. There must be some shadow aspect within yourself, for example, that needs integration, or where you need to love it yourself to strengthen your energetic field that dark entities cannot enter. So as such, the dark entities allow you to choose something other than yourself. They allow you to choose ego than yourself, so you can make an ego experience, so you can go through the process of individualization. But at some point you realize this leads to great suffering, and then you might want to return to who you truly are. And then the dark entities can actually indirectly help you by making you aware of where you need to do the shadow work. Yeah, where you are triggered, where you're upset, where you get angry. This is where you have ego, right? So then the negativity is truly not negative, but it's an indicator of where you are not fully integrated. And this is basically your inoculation against corruption. So I hope that this made sense to you guys, and I hope that you benefit from what I have been sharing with you. Contemplate about that, be well, and please look within, not without.